The committee will come to order. We do have a quorum and we're ready for business. Thank you, all those that are present. We appreciate your presence here in the committee meeting with us today. I'd like to start off with just a couple of preliminary things so that you know exactly what we'll be doing here this morning. As indicated last night, there will be a closing statement by those who, by Senator Cherie Buckner Webb, to be specific. She will be making a closing statement. She may or may not be asked questions by the members of the committee. We'll allow questions of her as well, and then we will proceed with the voting. Also, I think this is something that needs to be done in a very public way, and that is to thank the support staff and security and all those who have done so well in this proceeding. You've only seen a small measure of what they do here, but without them, we could not function. And so they do need our appreciation for that. The other thing that I think that I'll explain right now is that to avoid any doubt about this on the part of the committee members, there will be a roll call vote. There won't be any need to call for that because there will be a roll call vote on whatever motions come before us this morning. So with that, Senator Buckner Webb, if you would come and close this up for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the chairman and the committee, I first express my thanks for convening this hearing and for your careful and considerate attention of the testimony provided over the last 3 days. First, the bill. Just to recap. House Bill 2 updates the Idaho Human Rights Act to add that gender identity and sexual orientation cannot be used to discriminate in the areas of employment, education, and public accommodation. These are in addition to those currently called out in the Act: race, color, religion, sex, age, national origin, and disability. The bill merely adds 2 categories. It does not change what are discriminatory actions. An employer can fire or expel someone for cause. He or she cannot, however, use any of the listed characteristics called out in the Act as an excuse to do so. Should a claim of discrimination be made, there is no cause for criminal action, but rather a civil claim processed under the Human Rights Commission rules. The Idaho Commission on Human Rights has the power to receive and act on complaints, to investigate complaints, and to appear in court. Note that the Human Rights Commission has no power to prosecute. A complaint must be filed within 1 year of an occurrence. The law requires the Commission to resolve issues by informal means prior to investigation. If they cannot, a formal investigation shows an action likely caused by discrimination occurred. The Idaho Human Rights Commission shall endeavor to eliminate such discrimination by informal means, such as conference, conciliation, or persuasion. If unlawful discrimination has occurred and reconciliation efforts are unsuccessful, the Commission may file a civil action. In any civil action, the burden of proof resides with the person seeking relief. That's per the code. That means that the complainant must prove to the court that an action caused discrimination and harm. Finally, the Idaho Human Rights Act does not apply to a religious corporation, association, or society, a bona fide occupational qualification, private clubs, religious educational organizations giving preference to members, housing in duplexes or other facilities if the one providing the lease resides herein. Why is it necessary to add gays and transgender Idahoans to the Human Rights Act? Well, you've heard the testimonies. You've seen the emotion that accompanies the stories. You've listened as person after person has shared the realities of their lives without the protections afforded by this act. In the wholeness of who I am, I support House Bill 2. I stand before you as a multi-generational Idahoan. My sons represent the 6th generation of my family to live in Idaho, and my precious granddaughter, the 7th. We are on purpose Idahoans. We are not here by accident. My family has made a choice, each generation, to live and work in Idaho. I'm an African American. Many of the concerns expressed here about updating the Human Rights Act are the same ones expressed about adding African Americans or race to the Human Rights Act. I remember my parents struggling for months and months to find a house in a neighborhood of their choice, one without a covenant that excluded blacks. I'm one who remembers the celebration when we finally bought a home in my district, where I live now, in a nice neighborhood with hardwood floors and a fenced yard. I remember a year later, the interruption of our dinner one evening when a cross was burned in our front yard, a year after we moved in. I remember the police. I remember my aunt crying and sobbing. I remember grandparents insisting that we move immediately, move in with them. I remember the fear that grabbed all of the black community. I remember when the Human Rights Act was first enacted in Idaho. Just making sure there are no age comments. I remember the joy, relief, and celebration that it elicited. I remember over a decade later buying a house 9 blocks from my parents when I moved back to Idaho and having someone steal my car the first night I was in my house, drive it up the hill, and drive it over a cliff, right by what used to be the Simplot Mansion. I remember the phone calls and the nasty name calling and people telling me to take my, and I won't use the words, children, and get out of the neighborhood, a neighborhood that I'd lived in almost 30 years. I remember people in my neighborhood saying terrible things, my neighborhood. I remember worrying for my children in my neighborhood, and right here in my state, a 5th-generation Idahoan. I'm a business person, and I've had a robust business life, probably equated to, again, how long I've lived. I've been a clerk. I was a long-distance operator. Who remembers a long-distance? Okay, that's all right. A singer, a global diversity manager, a marketing manager, a region procurement manager, a national business manager, the list goes on. And LGB folks were present in every environment, but most of them were secreted. My experience includes 30 years in the corporate environment and as many years in small business, working internationally in a number of disciplines, including diversity and inclusion, cross-cultural competence. I have a lifelong experience in dealing with discrimination, both personally and professionally. I have to say, when I'm working in cities across the U.S., and I say I'm from Idaho, I don't know who's more surprised, black folks or white folks. I always get a reaction, because quite frankly, there's a perception about Idaho. I've seen the looks, I've heard the comments, she's black, you know. How will she fit in? How will our clients respond to a black woman? Or after talking to one client on the phone for years, finally meeting them in person and having them say, "Oh, you're so tall." That's code, you know. And I'm wondering how the dialogue would have gone if they had known who I was. I've been privy to witnessing the value proposition for diversity in world-class business environments, recruiting and hiring and retaining the best, the brightest. I've seen robust economic development because of diversity. I've seen bottom-line results. And I'm a mother. I wear it like this badge every day. My life script has led me to this time in this place. I'm fortunate to have seen my young sons grow to manhood, and yet I've wept with mothers who have not been so fortunate. It broke my heart just recently to join in a celebration of life that cut short a life of a talented, bright young gay man due to the terror of the isms that plague our community. I've been the other, one outside the mainstream dominant culture. I know what it's like to walk in fear and uncertainty. I know what it's like to worry for the safety of my children, the people I love, for my own safety. I know what it's like to face the fear of being treated with disdain and to be diminished. I know what energy it takes to constantly be on guard. And I am proud to be your colleague. I'm honored to serve the people of the state of Idaho, to work hand in hand with you for the betterment of our state. I'm proud to be a servant of the people of Idaho, and I stand before you today, compelled to call out for the rights that some in their privilege continue to take for granted, that they would be extended to all, the right to fairness and equality in accessing education, housing, and employment, for the opportunity for all people to be treated justly with dignity and respect, to have the opportunity to fully and openly participate and contribute in our communities without fear. In the vernacular of my own cultural tradition, I have a charge to keep. That means work to do. And finally, I'm a woman of faith. I'm undergirded by an understanding of our interconnectedness as people, an inheritance of responsibility and action demonstrated by legions of men and women who came before us. I believe I have a calling. I'm supported by committed citizens from across Idaho, a powerful history of men and women who continue to strive to ensure that everyone gets a fair shake and the chance to pursue their dreams and their hopes and the opportunity to win in the workplace, in the marketplace, in their homes, to thrive. I have an abiding confidence in relationship with that power greater than myself. And finally, I'm empowered by a vision for a future, not only for the next generation, not only for my grandbaby, but rather for generations to come, because truly what we do today sets the foundation. Our friends, neighbors, family, members of the LGBT community want the opportunity to awaken every day and carry on their lives without fear. Fear of losing their homes, fear of losing their jobs, fear of losing their lives. You see, many of the same arguments, I've said this before, for denying LGBT community rights and accessing and access to other things were used to keep women and blacks out of the workplace. Well, the world is still turning, and women are in leadership positions in every arena. And by the way, I'm standing here today before you in this place, the People's House, at this time, black, female, and a woman of a certain age, and the world has not stopped spinning on its axis. I ask, what will our legacy be? It is my hope that we will endow the future. It is time to extend justice to all Idahoans, and it is my hope that we will take courageous action to end oppression and bring justice to all in our communities. In the words of my tradition, because that's what I fall back on every time, anybody that knows me, I would ask that we would be unified in our quest for justice, that we would be filled up with the spirit of unity, that our steps would be ordered, that we would be equipped for the challenges that come. It is my fervent prayer that our commitment would be increased to be inclusive, open, and understanding, that we would move forward with grace, vigor, wisdom, and compassion to unleash that power that lies within this body of committed, purposeful men and women. It is my hope that we would leave a legacy of power, passion, and purpose for generations to come. Martin Luther King said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." With that, I ask for your support for HB 2. It's fair, it's just, and it's worthy of your yes vote. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there
Stand for
questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. House Bill 2 is properly before the committee.
Let's move on to the special hearing on the forecast.
Representative Andrus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that House Bill 2 be held in committee, and I'd like to speak to the motion, please.
Allow you to do so. Go ahead, Representative Andrus.
Ladies and gentlemen, I wish I could speak what is in my heart to you today. I apologize that my ability is inadequate to tell you what I feel. I am in favor of legislation. I don't think today this is that legislation. I've received probably 1,000 emails from people concerned about this issue. It is a burning issue in this state, and we need to address it. We have heard you, and I want to assure you that we will address it. But I'll tell you why I don't think this legislation is the way to address it. People thousands of people, probably hundreds of thousands of people, are concerned that their religious freedom is also being impinged and would be impinged, and their right to act would be violated to protect their religious held freedoms. We need to address those concerns as well. We have come a long way. I think this very hearing has brought us a long, long way. I wish every employer, I wish every landlord could have heard your stories. And I think they will. Through this hearing, I think they will hear your stories. Do not despair. I think we will have legislation. This is just me speaking. I'm not speaking with authority from the legislature. I think because of this hearing and because of things that have happened this week, we will have legislation. Do not despair. Your concerns are legitimate, very legitimate, and people in Idaho and in the legislature have heard you and are hearing you. You people of the LGBT community probably think, and I know you have felt, that we view you as second-class citizens and discriminate against you. I do not feel that way. The members of this committee do not feel that way. My heart goes out to you because of how you're living, the anxiety that you feel, and we will do something for you. Take heart. Don't be in despair. We will do something. But we have to address both sides. The best thing we could do is just be good people and get along. But unfortunately, there are a few who don't abide by that concept, and we have to make rules. But we have to be very careful how we make those rules. And today, my feeling is that this is not the rule that addresses the whole picture. It addresses part of the picture. But believe me, we have the ability to address the whole picture, and we will. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Wintrow.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move for a substitute motion to move House Bill 2 to the floor with a do pass recommendation. I would like to speak to that.
Lady has the floor.
Representative Andrus, I know the struggle you're having. I see it and I feel it. And I just so appreciate your willingness to be honest and share the feelings that you're having. I know you're struggling. I've come to know you a little bit since I've come here, and I know you're struggling. You're a good man. I think this issue, as you've said, to be careful. I think for the last, more than 9 years, people have been very careful trying to craft approaches and language and so forth because of the despair that they're feeling and suffering. I think people have been very careful. And as Senator Buckner Webb noted, this is an addition, an update, an amendment to an existing law that we have that protects many classes. And we know that the amount of violence and denial of access to things is pervasive. And I see the struggle many of us are having. I went to see Representative Bateman, and I know he's a good man too. But the thing I've been facing is, and I had a talk today with a colleague, bless his heart, he is so wonderful, and he said, leadership is about reason in difficult times. And he was talking about growing up in Idaho during the civil rights era and having conversations in his grade school about whether black people were human beings. And he's a good man. And I think that's the conversation we're having again. These are good human beings that deserve the same rights and privileges that everybody else does. As as a representative for District 19, living in a densely populated area, we have many churches and many different beliefs. We know that tolerance and inclusion is the way. I am asking, and even if we vote to pass it to the floor, that would at least give it its time for everyone to vote. So even if we decided to pass it today, you wouldn't have to agree with it, you wouldn't have to condone it, but let it get to the floor for everyone to vote and weigh in. I think our state deserves that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to do an amended substitute motion. I move that House Bill 2 be sent to the floor with no recommendation to allow all House members to vote on this important issue. And may I talk to it, the motion?
Certainly.
That we have heard from 67 to 81% of Idahoans support equal rights for all in employment and housing. I think it would be responsible if we had all House members vote on this important issue. I would like to say thank you to all who did heart-wrenching testimony on both sides of the issue. I appreciate your participation in democracy in the state of Idaho. I would like to also say I've been part of a family that has been in the Idaho area since the time of when Idaho was part of the Oregon Territory and was not even a territory. So I feel like I truly am an Idahoan, and so I submit this amended substitute motion for no recommendation.
Further discussion on the motion? Representative Jordan.